Go. Welcome back, podcasters. This is Dr. Ruben Valdez. Super excited today because we have a very, very special episode for you. Today, we are joined by Mariah Picou. Did I say that right?
Picou, yes.
Picou, all right, excellent. And Mariah is a recent friend. Very excited to have her now in my life. And I discovered that Mariah has had a very consistent practice of meditation over the last couple of years. And to give some context as to why I believe this is extremely important, right now, everybody is almost out of their bodies with anxiety, with fear, with concern. Two main things that are really weighing down. One is my personal health, the health of the people that I love. Are they going to get sick? Are they going to die? Are they going to make it through this? And on the other side, so many people that are, concerned financially, bankruptcy, kind of filing for unemployment, business owners wondering what's going to happen tomorrow. How am I going to make my income? And it just seems like there's a barrage of fear and just of negativity. And today we want to dive into a different narrative, into a different type of story, into what is possible when we actually go inside and look at our mind and study our mind and our emotions as a tool to maybe navigate the uncertainty or the bardo of what is ahead. And so for that reason, I've invited Mariah to be on the podcast today. How are you doing, Mariah?
Hey, I'm doing pretty great despite the circumstances, and I definitely credit my meditation practice for being able to sit with discomfort, right? Like sitting with things right now are not the norm, and to sit here and pretend to be like, oh, I'm great, I'm wonderful, life is amazing. Like that's just not reality. But I'm really, really grateful that I have such a strong practice to keep me coming back to center when I feel like I'm swinging too far, into the fear, into the despair, and the anxiety of it all.
Excellent. So let's.
How are you?
I'm good. I'm very good. I mean, same as you. Trying to hold, firm and anchored down through a period that is very uncertain. Let's talk a little bit about that practice of meditation. What is the practice that you're choosing to commit to? Why that practice specifically, and what does it look like for you on a day-to-day basis?
So I practice a technique called Vipassana meditation. The way I learned about it, I'm sober as well. So I was in a meeting and a doctor was talking about it, and it was like I had been searching for so long to find something that called to me. And the way he was explaining it in the meeting was just it instantly made me, I got in my car right after the meeting, I looked it up, and I signed up. And the reason why I was so drawn to it was the simplicity of it, right? Vipassana meditation is connecting to reality, right, through the sensations of the body. Very simple. It was a very simple technique. And the way that you learn it is by going to a 10-day meditation course, which that in itself can be a lot to somebody, right? I don't think that's the first thing that people want to go do is a 10-day silent meditation course. I'm curious about how people's minds will start to shift now during this time of isolation and kind of realizing the gift that is of sitting with yourself for 10 days in silence. Of course, it's different us right now in our own home isolations. We have people and interactions, but I think this might actually help people open up to the idea of sitting for 10 days in silence.
Yeah. And it's interesting because I've heard people talking about the fact of how going to work every day can, and having our daily routine can in a way, be a distraction or a disconnection to what's going on inside of us. And all of a sudden we're forced to be with ourselves.
Right.
And there can be also a lot of distraction within our homes and a lot of other ways of escaping just whatever might be going on within us. And so let us help us understand, because my understanding is that the longer that somebody has been in the practice of meditation, they tend to see transformation and changes in their mind and their personality.
Mm-hmm.
So guide us through what some of that has looked like. If you can maybe talk a little bit about life pre-Vipassana meditation and now life with a sustained practice over a few years.
Oh, wow. I can't stress enough that Vipassana has been such a gift for me. Before I went to so I've done 2 10-day courses now over the last 2 years. And the first one that I went to was in 2018. And so I just shared that I was sober. So I had already had some kind of foundation going of like trying to connect to myself and to some sort of higher power, which I was completely lost at that point in my life. Like I didn't know what that meant to me, right? Like I grew up in a pretty Catholic household. So there was talk of Jesus and, you know, saints and all these things. But there was always kind of like a disconnect for me. Like a lot of these stories didn't fully resonate for me. So I was searching for that. I felt very unstable in my life in the sense that I felt like I was always running this rat race of like trying to achieve happiness. Like it was always like I would get this one thing and then I'd be elated and happy that I got like a job or something, and then it would go away. And then I was always searching for the next thing to make me happy. And similar with like a misery, right? So I was always blaming the outside as well for like my unhappiness, whether it was my childhood or my parents. Like I grew up with parents who were fighting all the time, so that made me not be able to have a positive relationship. Or I wasn't gaining success in my career because I didn't have the money growing up. Whatever it was, I was always blaming something outside of me for my happiness and for my misery. But I wasn't looking at myself. I wasn't looking at like, how am I reacting to these circumstances? How am I not taking responsibility for my happiness, for my misery? And in the 10-day course, I had the first time I had these like massive revelations to those things. And I came out, I'm not perfect, okay? Like far from it, I'm no Buddha. But it's definitely changed me now. It didn't happen overnight, but it did happen pretty quickly. I came back from my first 10-day course, and the first moment that I had a sign that the technique actually helped me was an interaction with my younger sister. I came home and she had some news to share with me. And she thought she was so nervous to tell me because she thought that I was going to explode and be angry, which was a way that I used to be. I used to react that way. If something I didn't like, I would instantly just lash out at people and be upset with them. But when she shared that information with me, I felt this like overwhelming sense of like feeling my body. And I was, without even really thinking about it, I was able to connect to myself and really listen to what she was sharing and not just think about Mariah, but think about her and what she was going through and why she needed this circumstances in life to happen. And I was able to have compassion and to be able to have a real sense of selfless love that I had never really knew about to my core. I had maybe talked about it, to be completely honest, before I learned Vipassana meditation. I thought that I was some kind of hippie that knew things about life, right? And thought I was very connected to the universe and all of that, but it was all very surface level. And Vipassana really helped me dig deep and to find a root, right? So Vipassana helps us get to the root of our misery, to the root of our sankharas, which are attachments, our bondages, the things that like really do cause a misery in our life. So it just overall made me a compassionate human being. It made me learn how to give love and how to receive love, because I think a lot of times we talk about like giving love, but I've learned that if I don't know how to receive love, how can I really give it to somebody else? So that's like in a little nutshell how it's like transformed my life.
Very good. And so, what insights helped you be able to move into a position where, talking about love specifically, what realizations helped you understand, how to both give and receive love that perhaps weren't there before?
It's an amazing question. In the first 10 days, I learned to forgive myself for a lot of the pain that I had caused myself. I did some things that now looking back at it, I'm like, wow, I was really hurting myself. And I think through having that experience of saying, hey, Mariah, like, I love you and it's okay. And you don't have to keep hurting yourself and blaming yourself for what happened, really helped me learn that I can't not only do that to myself, because number one, I have to stop doing it to me. I have to stop hurting myself and stop blaming myself and punishing myself for things. Because if I'm not okay, I cannot give that love to others. I cannot give that compassion to others. And so I had to first learn for myself, and then I was able to expand that to others, right? Which is one of the practices that you learn in Vipassana is metta, which is a meditation where you send love and positivity and simply goodwill to all beings. And so that's what really helped me, was to start with myself. And I'm not perfect. I don't do this on a daily basis. I still have moments where I don't talk so nice to myself and I don't talk so nice to other people. But what's changed now is this pendulum that I live by. So my boyfriend is amazing, and him and we have these great conversations. And just yesterday we were talking about how life is a pendulum and how we swing from one side to the other, right? Whether that means anger and happiness, whether that's misery and peace, right? There's all these different types of pendulums. But the importance is like learning how to swing back to center, right? So we're not perfect. We're not always going to be in the middle. We're going to be swinging from side to side. And what Vipassana and meditation has helped me do is to come back to center more quickly. And so that's how I like gauge where I am with my practice, is how quickly can I come back to center? Because the truth of reality is that I cannot stop myself from reacting all the time, right? Like if I was that, then I would be a Buddha. That's what I would be. I would be perfect in a sense, right? But I'm not. And so now I learn how to come back to center. And it's funny because as a kid, my dad used to give me the same analogy. He'd always tell me like, he'd be like, Mariah, don't swing too far right, don't swing too far left. And I used to make fun of him. I used to be like, well, why wouldn't you want to be extremely happy all the time, right? And my dad would explain it that it's like, if you're
Passion.
up here, right, you're going to swing far to the other side. And so he would talk about swinging in this happy medium. And I think what I've been learning about life is that I can swing to a very high place in life, right? That's possible. But it's important to remember that life isn't always going to be there, right? That this isn't forever, because eventually I'm going to swing to the other side where we are all in life right now, right? Like we're all combating with loss and fear and anxiety, but it's so helpful right now for me to remember that this isn't forever, this isn't going to keep This isn't going to, yeah, it's not forever. It's impermanent. It's anicca, which is one of the terms we use in Vipassana.
Mm-hmm. Very cool. And um, it sounds like as your insights have been, let's say, evolving, it's changed the way that you swing emotionally. It's changed the way that you come back to center. It's changed perception. Has that had an impact on things like your actions, on your decisions on a day-to-day basis? And how does that look?
Very much so. I am not as a reactive person as I used to be. I was very quick to blame, right, others. I was very quick to attach to things, right? Like if things were happy, I'd always want to attach to them. I think a big way that my actions have changed is I'm not always just thinking about the good for Mariah, right? I do think of what's good for Mariah because that's important. That's important that Mariah is safe, that she's able to be positive and be in a good environment. But I'm not just thinking about, is this just good for me, right? I'm thinking, how is this going to affect somebody else? Is this going to hurt somebody if I say this? Is this going to make someone feel less than if I do this? So it's changed how I go about and making decisions for my life. I don't just do things because I want to do them. I don't just do things because they make me feel good. Like, you know, like it's hard. It's not easy, but it's definitely doable with the practice. I'm trying to think of other ways. I mean, it's definitely changed a lot that I do, right?
Mm-hmm.
The way I communicate, I don't just say things right away. If someone says something and it hurts, I'll stop, check in with me, and I'll really process that before I say something back. And that's with a lot of different practices, right? I can't just credit Vipassana for all the tools that I have in my kit, but I feel like these tools were really cemented in me through the practice,
Mm-hmm.
which is interesting because the practice pretty much is you sitting there and observing your body. But I think once the mind and body connect, that's when things really cement in ourselves in how we can approach certain tools that are done. One of the analogies that they use in the course is talking, because the practice is not at all religious. It's not sectarian. It's none of that. Anybody can practice this, whether you're Jewish, you're Christian, like it doesn't matter. It's a technique. It's simple. It's for all humans. But they do talk about one of like Jesus and how Jesus says to love your neighbor, and you know, like things like don't throw, I'm not perfect, I don't know these things, but it's like about throwing stones, right? You know how there's that thing where it's like,
Mm-hmm.
he who has not sinned may cast the first stone. And I heard all of those things growing up, but it wasn't until this practice that it really cemented in me, like, oh right, that does make sense, right?
That's
Like
what Jesus meant.
that's what I was like, oh, Jesus was a meditator too, like, you know. And so that really really stuck with me because I heard all that stuff growing up, and I would hear people say it all the time, like say these things, and but I was like, but are you doing those actions? Because you can easily say things, but are you actually doing them? And so that's something that I try to do now, is like, I'm not just saying things, I'm actually acting in the way of good, like trying to be a good person.
So, Mariah, it's from some of the reading that I've done around Vipassana and mindfulness meditation.
Mm-hmm.
When they look at it from a scientific approach, it seems like it has the ability to really improve quality of life. Um, and they talk about the creation of this space, right? You were talking about reactivity. So stimulus reaction, the
Mm-hmm.
environment, life, people, words, actions, situations are continual stimuli that are coming into our body, into our nervous system, into our brains. And, when we're in a state of agitation, of unmindfulness, then it becomes very quick to just react on every stimulus. And the consequence of that can be making very bad choices relationally, in the actions that we make, and even how we manage finances, how we, manage our own energy throughout the day. And so I've heard and read that with practice, there's this space, right, that begins to separate stimulus to reaction. And in that space, where we observe, where we refocus, re-perceive the situation, it's talked about how it can really drive improved quality of life, because it can change the decisions that we make. Is that something that would connect with your personal experience? Is there truth to that?
Very much so. That is truth. That is facts.
Okay.
Very beautifully said, by the way. Vipassana is very much a science. And that's what, like, when I went, my mind was like, poof, like, it's just like so science-based. Like, anything that you want to know is just scientifically there. And it's like, it's almost just like a study of the human, it's a study of the human body, of the human experience. And it is because I'm not a teacher. I haven't been trained to teach. So I'm just going to try to say this in the best way that I know how. Is what Vipassana does help us do is to observe the sensations in the body without attaching anything to it, right? So let's say you're feeling a sharp needling sensation in your knee. It's learning how to observe it without attaching any kind of emotion to it. So without being like, oh, that's pain, that hurts. It hurts. I'm not going to say you don't feel pain or whatever, but it's learning to be like, okay, that's there. It will pass. Observe it, it will go, instead of having an instant reaction to do something. And so how that applies to life, for example, right now, what's going on, with a lot of us not knowing when we're going to have work next, or not being able to see our loved ones, right? So instead of having that instant knee-jerk reaction of, it's okay to have a reaction, right? It's totally normal to cry and be upset and all that. But I think what the practice at least has helped me do is, okay, I'm going to feel that fear. I'm going to feel that anxiety, and it's there, but it's not forever. And I don't want to say detach from it, because I don't feel like I'm not feeling it, and I don't feel like I'm moving away from it. I'm accepting reality as it is and not how I would have it be. And that's where misery comes into place, because I believe that if we are trying to change reality, which we cannot, right? Like, I cannot change what's happening right now. I can't change that there is a pandemic going on. I can't change that people are dying. Like, I can't change that. But if I can accept it and be like, okay, what can I do with this? And not try to see it as bad, and not trying to see it as negative, and just trying to see it for what it is, it helps me move through life. And it's with all other things too. Like, it's not just during crisis like this. It's normal things. It's your boyfriend doesn't text you back when you want him to text you back. My first reaction is, I want to get upset. What is he doing? Who is he with? La, mine goes crazy, right? But I can observe it, right? I can observe my mind racing and going into this psychosis, and then being like, okay, what's reality? What's actually happening? Let's come back. Let's come back to what's really happening right now. And so that's, I think, the more humanistic way of putting the practice, right? Yeah, and it's hard to explain it until you do it,
Yeah,
And it also works
absolutely.
with, like, happy feelings, right? Like, it also helps with, like, good sensations, because let's face it, you're not always going to have great. So it's like, when you're used to feeling joy and feeling happy, sometimes we attach. We get so like, oh, I don't want to lose it. I don't want to lose it. And then we're also concerned about not losing it. And then once it's gone, then you're freaking out, right? Because you're no longer having that good positive sensation. So you're once again wishing for something else to be there that is not there.
Right, right. The experience of clinging, which results in yet more suffering.
Yeah.
And so a few things come to mind, because I think that you've hit on a few key points, a lot of key points that could be tremendously valuable for the people that are going through, whatever they might be going through. One of them, you talked about reality and acceptance of reality, right? I think that knee-jerk reflex, right? We touch a hot stove. We want to move our hand away from it. It's painful. I don't like it. I don't like it.
Right.
And so, in a way, I've seen myself and caught myself engaging in behaviors like opening the refrigerator 17 times. Is there anything new in here, right? Yeah. Or just any type of obsessive thinking pattern to deal with the fear, to deal with the anxiety, and what I'm doing is really running away from the reality. That is the reality. And I think, and correct me if I'm wrong, I think something magical happens when we actually sit with the reality. Okay, this is reality. It really sucks. It hurts. But then there's a door that seems to open up sometimes, which is changing the things that can be changed, right? Okay, so, there's no work. I can either blame COVID-19 for my failure or my bankruptcy or my family being in the poorhouse, or I can pivot, I can adjust, I can refocus my energy into new possibilities, into things that I can invest my attention and my focus into that could be beneficial, whether for my community, for the people around me. So is that something that is part of Vipassana practice? When you're looking at reality, do that type of insight, is that a part of the meditation practice? Does that ever happen to you?
I would say yes. I feel like it helps me sit with discomfort. I think that's like number one that I want to start with. It helps me learn to sit there and be like, okay, because when you're practicing, right, it's all about sensations. Vipassana is not a verbalization technique. It's not a visualization technique. So it's just you and your body and what's going on right now in your body. And so I think that's how this translates into what's going on in life, that it comes back to what is happening, how am I feeling about it, and what am I going to do about it, right? Instead of, ow, this hurts, I'm going to react this way. Like, this doesn't feel good, I'm going to, just be sad and depressed. And that's okay, right? Like, that's totally okay to like feel sadness and feel depressed and not feel good right now. But it's also really helpful to learn a technique, whether it is Vipassana or whether it's something else, that helps you be accepting of it so that you can take a positive action, right? That you can, instead of, it's okay if you want to lay in bed for whatever time you want to lay there and just feel it, do it. If that's what you need, okay, But for me, for myself, like, I know that if I want things to change, I can't keep doing the same thing, right? Like if I want things to change, I can't just keep sitting here and feeling pain. I have to do something about it. I have to look at it with a new perspective. And so right now, what it's doing is, I don't have work right now, right? So I could sit here and be mad. I could sit here and be upset. Or I could be like, now I finally have the time that I've been asking for. I've been asking for time to focus on my creativeness, on a business that I want to start. Like, now I have that time. And of course, I can't not acknowledge that I'm blessed to not be worried about food on the table or taking care of children, things like that. But I think we can all, little by little, piece by piece, try to change our outlook on life to be a little bit more positive, to be a little bit more positive action based, right? And I think sometimes we put this stress on like good, bad, negative, positive. Um, I think it's important to kind of change the mindset on that itself too, because negative doesn't always have to be bad, right? And good doesn't always have to be positive. It's just the reality of what it is and accepting it for what it is. Does that
Awesome.
answer the question?
Yes, absolutely.
Mhm.
And so, as we move to a close, um, a meditation practice, a consistent meditation practice, is not a, it's not an easy thing, right? Help us understand, what are some of the decisions that you have made, and how have you been able to make it a priority to make sure that this is such a central part of your life?
Well, I'm very blessed that I was able to do 2 10-day courses before all of this happened. Um, the reality is, for me at least, I couldn't even sit for more than 10 minutes before I did a 10-day course. Now I do my best, not perfect, do my best to sit 2 hours a day. So I sit an hour in the morning and an hour in the evening. I'm not perfect. I'm not sitting there the whole time. Okay, I'm definitely moving around. There's thoughts going on, like things are happening in me. But I think that for me, I notice a difference when I'm not sitting. I notice a difference when I do not do my 2 hours. I'm very reactive. I can't see things clearly in life. And I think if people are out there wanting to change that about their lives right now, if people are out there wanting to find some kind of peace, I would strongly encourage to look up a meditation practice. If you want to learn about Vipassana, you can go to dhamma.org, which is spelled DHAMMA.org. Right now, all centers are closed due to the pandemic, right? They're practicing social distancing and doing all that. But so you can't learn Vipassana, because to properly learn Vipassana, it takes 10 days, and that's scientifically proven. They've been studying this for thousands of years, and that's the amount of time that it really cements into you. But you can learn Anapana, which is what you're taught first before you learn Vipassana, which is just a simple observation of the breath. Very easy to learn. They have recordings. It's amazing. They have it on Apple Music. They have it on Spotify. They have it on their website, YouTube. And that'll really help with calming your mind, because it brings you back to just a center focus. And so it helps calm the mind and ease. And sometimes when I'll come back to Anapana all the time, because it helps me just come back to my body. But there's other techniques out there, So I'm not saying that Vipassana is the way. I do know it is the technique for me that I've learned that really gets to the root of misery. Some other meditations just seem to clean the surface of the mind, but it's not really getting down to the root, right, of what's going on. And that's okay. That's what I used to do. I used to dabble in other things before I learned Vipassana. But just find something, whatever seems to work for you, whether it's, even if it's 5 minutes. Like I just said, I do 2 hours a day, but even if you just do 5 minutes and you set it on your calendar and you put it there, I'm going to wake up and the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to sit for 5 minutes, and then do that for a week, right? Just simple. Like, I think the best thing, sometimes we try to overcomplicate our lives and are like, I need to do 2 hours like her, right? And like, but you're just leading towards misery, because now you want to be like somebody else and you don't want to be you. So what I would suggest is just try 5 minutes, simple breathing exercises, and then add a little more onto that and take notes. Maybe journal like, how did I feel the beginning of this week and how do I feel now this week, and see. And if whatever technique you just learning, it's not working for you, try something else, right? Like I would say just because you don't like one thing, you might like another one, right? Like I couldn't connect to other meditation practices before Vipassana, but then I found Vipassana and I was like, oh, I want to do this. I'm going to sit, I'm going to do it. So I would say just find something that you connect to, be consistent, and be open to possibilities.
Excellent. So would you be willing to share with us some resources or email me? I'll give you a place to send them so I can put them on the description and people can go. Hopefully some of these introductory sessions and maybe some of the places that once this craziness is over, people can actually attend a 10-day session to be able to go deeper and become more rooted in the practice itself. Would that be something that I can promise them moving forward?
Yes, it would be my absolute pleasure. You can also reach out to me on my social medias. It's very simple, my first and my last name, which is Mariah, Mariah, Picou. I'll send that over to you as well, and feel free to reach out. I'm willing to ask any questions that anybody has to ask. And also, I'll send the links to the websites that you can go and find other information too.
So last closing question for you. Have you considered becoming a teacher?
Yes, I think with time, what's beautiful about Vipassana, which I'll also share about these centers, so it was as taught by S.N. Goenka, and he founded these centers and he made all the centers donation-based and volunteer-based. So there is no monetary exchange for the practice, right? So when you do donate, let's say if you do donate money, it's for someone else to receive the gift of Dhamma. So all the teachers, all the people who work there, everyone's volunteering their time. Nobody's getting paid for it. It's all because we want others to receive the gift that we received. And that's one of the biggest reasons why I was so attracted to it, because there is no donation cap. There is no like you have to donate $20. None of that. If all you could go and donate was an apple and that's all you could give, like that's the point is that you want someone else to receive that gift, right? So yes, I hope one day that I am rooted enough in my practice to be able to go and help the centers and help other people receive the gift that I so freely was given.
Excellent. Excellent. So much. Thank you so much, Mariah. I've taken so much personally from our conversation today, and I really pray and hope that the people that get to listen to you and hear your experience are also as enriched and empowered by this information. And I love the fact that, with insight, we no longer have to be the victims of blaming everything outside of us. And we can really become empowered by what's going on inside of us. So thank you for your time. Any closing remarks?
Be kind to yourself, have compassion, love yourself. It's a hard time, and if that's what I'm taking right now, of all that I've learned is just to have compassion for myself and for others. Yeah.
Awesome. Well, thank you so much. Have a great rest of your day.
Thank you.
And thank you for being with us today. Bye-bye.